It's time for NFL predictions week 4. Last week, my predictions were borderline off with 8 correct choices and 8 wrong choices, bringing my total for the season to 29 and 19. To be fair, how could I have predicted the Packers are going to be the Browns? I mean, come on, who else said that? First up, we got the Thursday night game. We got Seahawks versus Cardinals. Now, the Seahawks, they're 2-1. The Cardinals are also 2-1, with the Cardinals just getting their first loss against the 49ers. The Cardinals offense struggled quite a bit. Marvin Harrison Jr. had some rough drops that game, and it just didn't seem like the offense was on the same page with everyone else. So even despite the fact that the 49ers were missing as many players as they were, they still were able to squeak it out. Meanwhile, the Seahawks made the Saints look like they're bitches last week, which I don't think is that hard to do, but still, they definitely got the job done. I stand by the fact that the Cardinals have been struggling offensively quite a bit, and I'm going to stand by the fact that I think the Seahawks are going to win this week. The Seahawks are a team that I think I underrated over the offseason, and I'm going to try to turn that narrative around now a little bit. Next up, we got Steelers versus Vikings. Now, the Vikings are coming off of a very, very impressive win against the Bengals, who are missing Joe Burrow. And the Steelers are coming off of a pretty close win against the Patriots, and they're able to get 5 turnovers in that game against the Patriots. I'm not sure how much of that was the Steelers being good at getting turnovers and how much of that was the Patriots being stupid, but nevertheless, getting 5 turnovers is definitely something to be proud about. For this game, I feel like a lot of stakes going to be placed on the fact that the Vikings just had such a dominant win, but I don't think that that amount of victory for them is sustainable. And I don't even think the Steelers are that good either. I just feel like this is going to be one of the quick turnaround weeks for the Vikings where they're going to have a crazy good win, ride that high, and then come back down to earth. I mean, this is 2025 Carson Wentz we're talking about here. I don't see him having a Sam Darnold arc like he did on the Vikings. I don't see this lasting. We got Commanders versus Falcons. Commanders coming off of a very good win without Jaden Daniels, and the Falcons coming off of a really bad loss against the Panthers. Seriously, what was that? I can be realistic here. I'm a Panthers fan, and I'm just going to say that we are not that good to where you should be losing to us 30-0. You guys suck. And I think you guys are going to further prove you suck by losing against the Commanders this week. Maybe they'll have some big comeback game. Whoa, man, the Falcons are going to make the playoffs this year for sure, just like they were supposed to the last 8 years. This is the year. We know Michael Penix Jr. is going to bring us to the end. And I also love the very bold strategy that Raheem Morris did, shit-talking the backup quarterback of your team. This one has Commanders win written all over it. We got Panthers versus Patriots. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm a Panthers fan, but I think the Panthers got this one. From last week's matchups, the Panthers just beat the Falcons 30-0, and the Patriots just lost to the Steelers with, I believe it was 5 turnovers. I don't think that they're going to have quite as many turnovers this time around. They'll get their act straight a little bit. But the Panthers defense looked pretty good against the Falcons, and I get that a lot of that was self-inflicted by the Falcons, but I think that the Patriots also make quite a few self-inflicted mistakes. If the Patriots are able to be mistake-free, then I do think they have this one, but I don't think they're going to play this mistake-free. Okay, I don't think there's much to say about this next one. We got Bills versus Saints. If I'm wrong about this, I don't even know what to say. I think I might just quit doing these predictions altogether because clearly I don't know ball. I'm going with the Bills here. I swear if the Saints win this, the Bills should be ashamed. Next up, we got Lions versus Browns. Now, will the Browns continue their streak of beating teams that they're supposed to lose to? I don't know. Maybe they will. But if the Lions defense continues to look as good as it did last week against the Ravens, getting, I believe, 7 sacks for that game, then I don't think that's going to happen. On top of this, it's starting to seem more and more like week 1's Lions were just a fluke team, and they've looked fine ever since. And I don't see the Lions offense faltering quite as much as the Packers did against the Browns. I'm not going to overthink this one. I'm not going to let the Browns trick me here. I'm going to say the Lions win this one. Next up, we got Titans versus Texans. This is going to be a real nail-biter game, 0-3 versus 0-3. Now, the Titans I expected to suck. I still think Cam Ward's going to be good in the league overall, but their team is just not very good. Meanwhile, though, the Texans, I was not expecting them to start 0-3. Their defense has looked pretty good, but their offense has been really, really uninspiring. I'm not sure what the problem is. I know their offensive line is pretty bad. I don't necessarily think this is going to be some big turnaround game for the Texans or anything. I just think that despite the fact that they've looked pretty bad these first 3 games, they're still better than the Titans. I think the Titans just have so many holes in the overall team that it's going to be a little bit before they get their first win. Although this is probably the Titans' biggest chance to get a win for at least a little bit. I don't think this is going to be the case though. I think the Texans got this one. Great, another fun game. We got Chargers versus Giants. Now Russell Wilson's officially dead now and Jackson Dart's taking his place. And I don't know if he's going to be good or not. Who knows? I feel like this kind of stuff's impossible to tell. He looked good in the preseason, but I don't put much stake in that kind of stuff. I'm not going to gas him up too much for this game solely because they're going up against the Chargers, who have been one of the best teams. They're 3-0 right now, and their defense has been good, and their offense is still continuing to evolve. Amari and Hampton last game finally started to show up and show what he's got. Unfortunately, I think this is just one of those scapegoat moments. Brian Dable's getting desperate. He's going to lose his job soon. So in a last-ditch effort, he's putting in his rookie quarterback, throwing him in the deep end against the Chargers, who just so happen to be one of the best teams. Everyone's going to turn on him. The Giants fan base is going to be like, oh, great, we drafted another bum. But this is his first NFL game, you know? It's just the Giants are going to lose. Next up, we got Buccaneers versus Eagles. Both of these teams made these games way closer than they had to be. The Eagles had to come back from victory, even though they probably should have just won anyway. The Buccaneers, they started out really far ahead and almost let the Jets come back last week. Now, at the moment, I think that the Buccaneers have not played enough really good teams to consider them a top-tier team at the moment. Meanwhile, I think the Eagles had their first real statement win of the season this last week. They beat the Cowboys, which shouldn't be that hard. And then they beat the Chiefs, which they're not at the highest level that they should be right now, so I don't consider that good of a win. But coming back against the Rams like that, who I think are a pretty good team, was a pretty big show of power. A.J. Brown finally showed up, which is why it's going to sound extra weird right now that I think the Buccaneers are going to win. Now, I think some Eagles fans know why I'm saying this, because for some reason, the last few years, the Buccaneers have just been the Eagles' kryptonite. Maybe it's the heat that does it. I'm not quite sure what it is about the Buccaneers, but they beat them really bad in the playoff game, I think 2 years ago now. And then last year, that was like the only game where the Eagles just didn't look very good. I know they lost a few players, but still, that was pretty bad. And I think this is going to be one where the Eagles are going to get in their own heads. The Buccaneers have been feeling great about themselves the last 3 weeks. And this is going to be another one of those games where it just kind of feels like it was never the Eagles. And I don't think this isn't going to be indicative of how the rest of the season is going to go for the Eagles. I just think this is going to be one of those games that you'd want to forget about as an Eagles fan. Next up, we got an interesting one. We got Rams versus Colts. Now, the Rams just got their first loss against the Eagles in a very, very sad way. Meanwhile, the Colts remain undefeated going into week 4. Now, I was the last person to expect the Colts to be good at all this season, and I think of everything that I was wrong about in the offseason, it's probably the thing I was the most wrong about. But the Rams, I did expect to be good. I gave them the win last week, and I was almost right up until the very end. I stand by the Rams being one of the better teams in the league, and I think that while the Colts are good, this is going to be their first loss of the season. I'm going to stick with the Rams here. We got Jaguars versus 49ers. We got one 3-0 team, one 2-1 team. The 49ers, I don't think it's any secret, they're not at their best right now despite being undefeated. I'm not sure if Brock Purdy is going to be back yet, but they're for sure going to be missing George Kittle. Nick Bosa is out with an ACL tear. Meanwhile, the Jaguars coming off of a win, and I still don't fully believe that the Jaguars are as good as the record says. I don't think they're terrible, but nothing about their wins so far have fully, I don't know, I'm not fully convinced quite yet. If they're able to pull off the win against the 49ers here, then I'll change my mind a little bit, but for now, I'm going to stick with the 49ers to get the win here. Next up, we got the battle of 1 and 2 teams. We got Chiefs versus Ravens. It is pretty interesting to me that one of these two teams, unless they tie somehow, are going to be 1 and 3 after this week. especially considering I don't think either one of these teams should be 1-3 teams. But I do think it's worth mentioning that the Ravens defense has struggled quite a bit so far this season, and the Chiefs offense has been missing quite a few people so far this season. The Chiefs last week were pretty steadily able to beat the Giants, but I don't think that is a very, very hard task. And meanwhile, the Ravens ended up losing against the Lions last week, which I had them winning that one. So thanks a lot, Ravens. I think this is going to be one of those weeks where we're really going to see the Chiefs' magic come into play here. Also, Xavier Worthy's going to be back. So I'm leaning towards the Chiefs here, whether I want them to win or not. We got Bears versus Raiders. This is the game that I'm probably going to watch the least this week. Bears are coming off of a pretty easy win against the Cowboys, really fully exposing just how bad the Cowboys defense is. That's another one where I'm not entirely sure how much of that was the Bears doing good stuff and how much of that was the Cowboys just being terrible. Meanwhile, the Raiders are coming off of a very, very unfortunate loss against Marcus Mariota and the Commanders. And last week, the Raiders were just the unfortunate casualty of the once-a-year Marcus Mariota dream game. Letting the Jaden Daniels Commanders drop 40 on you is definitely not a good sign for your team moving forward. I don't really think that highly of the Bears either, but I do think that this is going to be one that they can absolutely win. But on the other hand, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. This one's going to be fun. We got Packers versus Cowboys. The Cowboys are in a tough spot right now. They just lost to the Bears in a very, very poor way, and they also just lost a bunch of players to IR, so not looking very good. The Packers aren't looking too hot after last week either. I know that the Browns defense is pretty good, but that is a terrible way to lose a game. This doesn't strike me as something that's going to keep going with the Packers, like this is going to be the start of some losing streak. And also, I think they're getting a pretty easy handout victory here to bring their morale back a little bit after last week, playing against the very, very weak Cowboys who already didn't look good before losing a bunch of players. So yeah, I'm pretty handily saying Packers for this one. And finally, we're down to the two very exciting Monday night games. First up, this might be the game of the week. We got Dolphins versus Jets. Oh boy, who else is tuning into this one? Now, I'll give them credit. The Dolphins last week looked better against the Bills than I expected him to until, of course, Tua threw a pick at the very end. And the Jets almost came back against the Buccaneers. They didn't come back. They didn't win the game. Aaron Glenn got really excited after that blocked field goal, but they ultimately didn't win. So yeah, both teams are 0-3, primetime game, just a game that's destined for greatness right here. This could unironically be a pretty fun game. Both teams are not very good. It could end up coming down to the wire. And at the end of the day, just because of how much better they did against the Bills than I expected, I'm going to say the Dolphins here just because the Bills are better than the Buccaneers and both teams ended up being pretty close last week. I'm just going to give the edge to the Dolphins. We got the final game of the week. We got the Bengals versus the Broncos. Now, the Broncos just had a really bad loss last week with Jake Browning at the helm. And the Broncos are 1-2 with an unfortunate loss to the Chargers last week, who, in all fairness, I think the Chargers are a good team. Neither of these teams have looked the strongest so far this season. However, at least the Broncos still have their star quarterback. Now, star might be a strong word for Bo Nix, but I think compared to Jake Browning, he is. If the Vikings defense tore Jake Browning apart, then I sure do wonder what the Broncos defense is going to do to him. Knowing the way I jinxed things, I don't think he's going to be bad at this game as he was last time. That was just awful all around. That wasn't even just him, just everybody in the offense sucked that day. I think this is going to be a case of the Broncos defense winning the game for them, and that's going to wrap up the week. Like this video. If you disagree with anything I said, comments, go ahead. And then if your comment's right, then come back and then just talk about how you were right and I was wrong. Sure, I'm 29-19 on my predictions, so there's a good chance that you will be right because I fucking suck at this apparently. And that's gonna wrap it up. See ya.